Hi, everyone, and we are back for another episode of the Wired for Success podcast. So, as you can see, it's just me today. My colleague Steve is not here. He will be back in a few weeks' time, but in the meantime, you've got me, and we are continuing on the subject that we started on last week together, which is dialogue between parents and young people, and the fact that it is essentials. But today, I want to talk to you more about how do we bring difficult subjects into our dialogue way between parents and young people. And it's really difficult sometimes as an individual, forget being parents or forget being a teenager, to really bring difficult subjects into a conversation in itself. And for people to be able to do that, they need to know that they are in a safe environment. They need to know that they are with people that they feel safe as well with. And also, they need to be confident and know for certain that they're not going to be, their words are going to be taken seriously and that they're going to be given validity, basically. So when we talk about giving validity, we are not talking about agreeing with what the person thinks or says at all. What we're talking about is that by listening, by using the skills of active listening, by being non-judgmental, by being non-critical, we are then allowing people to just be validating into what they're feeling. Remember, everything is about perception, and Steve and I have gone over this subject way before, but it's always coming back. Everything is about perception. So coming as a parent, something might shock you, or maybe you might think, oh, this I'm disappointed or anything like that. And this is normal to feel like this. But the idea is that when we want to create a dialogue and a healthy dialogue between parents and teenagers, the idea is to really bring in this kind of like, you know what? I don't understand maybe the full idea that you want to convey. I don't understand what you are telling me exactly. I don't understand maybe how you feel exactly. However, I'm taking in what you are saying right now and I'm giving relevance to what you are sharing with me at this moment in time. And together we can look at what can we do? What can we bring together? Which solution we can find into creating a better path for each and everyone. So in discussing difficult subjects, so we spoke last week about Steve, and where he was talking about you know for example, whether the daughter had a sexual relation with someone else and that she needed to be checked. So she needed to either go to the family clinic, the family planning clinic, or she needed to check her health. So all this conversation, and I did mention that at the time, is not easy to bring up, especially when you take in your own cultural or traditional background as well that comes in. But what we need to understand, or what will be good for parents to understand, is that we need to move into the days, into the new days, to understand a little bit more about what young people are going through right now. And for young people, what is interesting that Steve mentioned last time is to also understand that as parents, the parent have some expertise and some experiences that they've lived that also give them more wise pathway into understanding things and finding more information. So, what can you do as a parent to bring on the difficult subjects and to talk about these difficult subjects? I think you can ask different questions. And I've got 3 questions that I've written here. You could always ask, is there anything going on in your life, big or small, that you feel comfortable talking to me about? If not now, maybe there's a time that would work better. Because remember, everything has to come from the other person and what they're willing to share. So nothing is coming by force. We're not forcing anyone. And what we are doing, we're sharing with them that we are open to listen in their own term, not our term as a parent, in their own term. And also that it could be something small, it could be something big. It does not matter. You are open as a parent to listen to them in any way. So it's really, really acknowledging that you are going on their own path. So if they are not feeling free to share right now at this moment, they can share later. I think that's really important because you are giving the teenagers control into how they share what they share. It's not about someone else. What can you say? Another question you could ask is when they do tell you and they do explain a situation or a difficult situation, is turning back their perception level. So saying, if it was your friend that was going through this, that was maybe struggling with this, maybe feeling overwhelmed at school, maybe some pressure, peer pressure, what advice would you give them? And by turning this question in that way, you are now allowing them to do the thought processing and to say, you know what, if my friend was going through this, I would tell them that. So now what you are doing, you are creating an environment where themselves, as teenagers, they can now say, you know what, I'm going to think both ways. I'm not going to just stay on one thinking, one perception. I'm going to try to see both perception. And often by doing that, they will get the answer that they need themselves. It really allows them to explore the different ways that you could think about a certain subject, and especially if the subject is really difficult. Like, for example, I remember one time, so I think my son saw someone, he saw 2 people, they were fighting, and he went to say, no, stop fighting and everything. He tried to break them up. And then he ended up being told off by the teacher. So it was a bit like, hold on, what's happening here? I'm being told off by the teacher where I was trying to break them up. So then what we were trying to do when we discussed this as a family is that we were trying to see, like, how could we put ourselves in a different perspective so that we can see how it would have looked for someone else. And from that point of view, he was able to understand. I think sometimes it's also acting as, not only acting as adult or saying you shouldn't have done this or you shouldn't have done that, is also actually saying, well, if you were in this person's shoes, what would you have done? Or what would you have said to them? And that changes the whole approach to the things. And another questions that, or another thing that you could say is really talking about yourself, as a parent, what you went through when you were a teenager. Maybe you can start by saying, I remember feeling this way when I was your age. I remember going through this when I was your age. What are some things that are making you feel that way? So remember, sometimes it's not easy to say, I'm angry, I'm upset, or I'm sad. It's not that as easy as people can say it. And sometimes just going through the experiences, just going through something that's happened and going through the steps can allow someone to say, you know what, that made me feel this way. And they can then recognize the feeling that they felt on that day and how they can manage those feelings. There's so much that we could talk about on this topic of difficult subject. But there's something else that we will be talking about in the next episode, which will be boundaries, and how we, even when in the difficult subject, as parents, we need to have boundaries, and our teenagers also need to know how they need to have also their own boundaries as well. So parents need boundaries, teenagers need boundaries. Is how do we support each other? Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for listening. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the text. We will read them. We will come back to you with our answers, and also we are there if we need any help, any support. We are here to support parents and teenagers into living the best of life and having the best relationship. So see you next week, and you take care of yourself for now.